Mr. President, I come to the floor today 71 days into the fiscal year, 71 days into a continuing resolution. It is unfortunate, I'm placing no blame, but it's unfortunate that we have not considered on the floor of the United States Senate not one of the 12 regular order appropriation bills. The appropriation process is completely broken. And quite honestly, it's been broken since I arrived here in the Senate in 2011. You know, I ran for the United States Senate primarily because I was concerned about the fact that we were mortgaging our children's future. Back then, we were $14 trillion in debt, and that was extremely concerning to me. 10 years later, 71 years into 2021 fiscal year, we are $27.4 trillion into debt. That's an increase of $13.4 trillion. It's almost doubled since I've been here in just 10 years. And again, the appropriation process is so broken. During that time frame, we've had to pass 36 continuing resolutions. The debt limit has no power in terms of controlling our out-of-control spending. We've either raised or suspended the debt limit 9 times. And unfortunately, during that time, that 10 years, we've also, because of the broken process here, we've shut down the government 3 times, costing our economy, costing our government billions of dollars, and hurting real people. Now, I come from a state in Wisconsin that if the legislature can't get its act together and we don't pass appropriation bills and we are at an impasse, we don't shut down the government. We don't even shut down a particular agency. What we do is we do something that's pretty practical, the type of common sense legislation that Wisconsinites would embrace. We just fund the agencies or the entire state government at the previous year's level. Doesn't that make sense? I think it makes all the sense in the world. So again, here we are, 71 days into the fiscal year. We haven't passed an appropriation bill. We're going to have to pass, within the next 24 hours or so, our 37th continuing resolution to kick the can another week so we can get our act together and pass some kind of massive omnibus that nobody's going to be able to read before they actually vote for it. It's a completely broken process. So I recognize that as chairman of Homeland Security Governmental Affairs, a certain part of this government shutdown, this broken process, some of these elements were in my committee's jurisdiction. We had a number of pieces of legislation, one by Senator Portman, one by Senator Paul, one by Senator Langford, who'd been working on a similar piece of legislation from being in the House, to end government shutdowns forever. So as chairman of the committee, I had to take a look at these pieces of legislation and decide which one did I want to bring up to my committee, pass out of my committee, and bring to the floor of the Senate. I chose Senator Langford's because he'd done a lot of hard work with Senator Maggie Hassan on a bipartisan bill. Again, very simple. It didn't automatically increase spending. It didn't automatically decrease spending. It did exactly what we do in Wisconsin. It just said if we don't get our act together and we don't pass any appropriation bill or a single or 2 appropriation bills for an agency, we don't shut down the government. We don't shut down that agency. We just appropriate enough funds at last year's level, and we continue until we actually do pass an appropriation bill. Now, I know members of the Appropriation Committee, I have all the respect in the world for the chairman and the ranking member. I know they don't like CRs. But again, this will be our 37th CR since I've been here for 10 years. It's broken. But just in case they're concerned about these CRs, what I can give you is Wisconsin's history in this. Since we passed this common sense reform, we've really, the longest CR that we've ever had in Wisconsin since we had this anti-government shutdown process was just 4 months in 1971. That's a long time ago. And it was only 4 months. I mean, we're approaching 4 months now. And again, this 37 CR since I took office. So we passed out of my committee. There were only two dissenting votes, 2 no votes, and those came from 2 senators who had just an alternate version of an End Government Shutdown Act. We passed this out of my committee 12-2. And we've been working now for the last year trying to find some vehicle to add it on as an amendment to end this insanity. And we thought, with a group of us here, this would be a good time. Now, it's a very simple bill. Again, if you don't pass an appropriation bill or all the appropriation bills, you just fund and appropriate at last year's level. But we have a few little disciplines to force the senators and Congress to do their job. And the first discipline is we don't allow any federal or campaign monies to be spent on travel, which basically kind of forces members of Congress to stay here in Washington until we do get our act together, until we do pass appropriation bills and fund government that's necessary. The other thing we do is we only allow Congress, each chamber, to only bring up appropriation bills into their chamber. And there is an exception, of course, for any bill that would have to do with an immediate national security emergency. That's pretty much it. Now, in committee, Senator Scott had an amendment, which I'll turn to him and have him describe the final discipline to force members of Congress to do their jobs, pass appropriation bills, and fund government without shutting the government down. Senator Scott.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson.